Welcome to the Backdrop user group meeting for March 14th, 2024. Today we're going to talk about spam prevention. I'm Justin Kaiser. I'm a web developer in Muncie, Indiana. I use Backdrop, Drupal, and WordPress, and I like Backdrop the best. Um, Go ahead, Tim.
Sure. My name's Tim Erickson. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota. And I suppose I'll just add that I'm looking forward to going to MidCamp next week, where I will be talking about MidCamp is a a Drupal camp in Chicago, and I'll be talking about the difference between Backdrop and Drupal layout systems. Izzy, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Izzy. I'm a freelancer from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And I use, just like Justin said, I use Backdrop, Drupal, and WordPress. But, they're all tools to try and do something or other. And I find Backdrop is where I'm at right now. So next, Wilbur.
Hi, my name's Wilbur Entz, and I've been a long time Drupal developer, and I've been pretty active with the Backdrop community in the last few years, running the Wednesday office hours, 2 to 4, UTC 19, for everyone in the world. You can come and join us and talk to people about Backdrop and bring problems, and we solve all kinds of things. So. And let's go to Vicki.
Hi, I'm Vicki Lace, and I am in Birmingham, Alabama. I have been a Drupal administrator for many, many years, and am now moving off of Drupal 7 into Backdrop, and have had lots of help from the Backdrop community. So I'm here to learn more.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to make a couple of one or two other quick announcements. Backdrop Live is our twice a year. We do like a 36-hour sort of a site event. It's our little virtual Drupal camp, but Backdrop camp. We call it Backdrop Live. Anybody can, if there's any topics you want to talk about, all you have to do is suggest the topic. We use somewhat of an unconference format, where anyone can propose a topic and we will talk about it. We do have some pre-scheduled sort of trainings that'll happen during that time. And I'm stalling while I get the date. The dates are the 4th and 5th of April. So if you go to events.backdropcms.org, you can register today. There's that. There's MidCamp next week. Some of us are going to DrupalCon in a couple of months. And are there any other camps coming up? When is Asheville, Justin? He doesn't know.
I had to find the unmute. The second weekend in July 10th through 12th or something like that.
Okay. Asheville's been another Backdrop friendly camp in the past. So if you're looking for an event near you, consider that. The last thing I want to say is if anybody has topics, we have in 2 weeks from now, Justin is going to share with us a little bit about his experience with WordPress to Backdrop migrations. We've talked a lot about Drupal 7 to Backdrop migrations, but in 2 weeks, we're going to talk a little bit about WordPress to Backdrop migrations. I think that's the last topic we have scheduled right now. We do meet every 2 weeks. So we need some topics for 4 and 6 weeks from now. So if you have ideas, please ping us in Zulip or contact us. Or bring them up during the meeting if you're here in the room. With that, I think we're going to let Wilbur, if you're ready, Wilbur, you're going to facilitate our discussion about spam prevention and other related issues. If anybody has things to share, I'm sure Wilbur would be open to that. Go ahead, Wilbur.
Okay, I raised my hand because I had something else, but
go ahead.
Twin Cities Drupal Camp is scheduled for November the 12th and 13th. And that is a Backdrop friendly camp. So that on your calendars.
Most of the camps are. So
Yep.
When I say backdrop friendly, I don't want to imply that like that's a big issue, but there are certain camps that the backdrop folks have been to more than others, and in Twin Cities, Drupal, Florida, Asheville, these are all camp, and Mid Camp are all ones that we've attended pretty regularly. Go ahead, Wilbur.
Okay. Well, I did a presentation on this just the other day. It was Drupal related, but I kind of had this in the can, so I thought I would share this with you guys. And I'm actually happy to report that it looks like there's a little more resources than I thought with Backdrop that is available. So let me share my screen and I have some slides, very amazing slides. Not very amazing slides, but okay. Rather than go into presentation mode, I'll just talk from here. So this talk is about spam and how do we stop the robots. So everybody is probably maybe has been exposed to this, but I don't know if you realize this, but there are malicious characters out patrolling the internet looking for places to post links to gambling, to porn sites, to shoe buying sites, to prescription drug, non-prescription drug buying sites. And they're really annoying because a lot of these systems are run by humans. Run by robots. So they will just find open forums that they can post things to, and they will post their innocuous messages. Sometimes this is different than them trying to maybe take control of your site. This is usually them posting things, like I say, about shopping and links and trying to get people to click somewhere else. So what happens if you have public facing forums, they will find them and they will fill them in. And once they find them and fill them in, they'll fill them in again and again and again and again. And so we need to find ways to foil them. So, so how do we foil the bots? And that's with modules, right? We extend Backdrop and the way that forms are handled during the process to try and stop the bots from installing them. So I'm going to talk about modules, but I'll maybe take a little bit of a step here and say a little bit about how these modules work to stop spam, because they have different schemes. So the first one I'll talk about is the anti-bot module, and we'll take a quick look at that. A couple things about anti-bot module. You'll see that has a lot of downloads. People use it a lot. And what it does is it hides the form from being exposed to robots. What it actually is doing is that it's hiding that form until there's some sort of human interaction. And by human interaction, that is mouse movement, mouse gesture, scrolling gesture, something that the anti-bot sees and it's like, that's a characteristic movement of a human. You know, when the mouse is moving, when the form is scrolling, when somebody's typing, that tells anti-bot, hey, this is a human rather than a machine. Because when a machine comes and visits your website, it's not scrolling, it's not moving the mouse, it's just filling in forms and hitting the click button. Another way that these anti-bot or honeypot modules work is there might be a time delay. So a machine can enter a form in a millisecond, but it takes us as humans 4 or 5 seconds. So some of these have a way of counting the time from when that form is loaded to when it gets submitted. And if it's less than 3 or 4 seconds, it says, hey, you're a bot. So anti-bot is a good module. It works until the bots find your form. And the problem is that we make that easy for them because we give them a URL like contact that the bots know exactly where it is and it doesn't go away. So that once they know where the form is, then they can trigger that form and then they can go at it. So this is a module that works, and if you're lucky, the bots won't find your form and you'll be able to do it. The beauty of Antibot is that there's no work to be done by the visitor. They just go to the form and they see that it's working and they're ready to go.
Well, Wilbur, can I heckle you for a minute?
Of course.
You're saying it works until the bots find your form, which then it wouldn't be really useful at all. The whole purpose of Antibot is to fight the bots. I think what you maybe are instead getting at is until the bots sort of figure out the scheme and defeat it. But it does, I mean, Antibot does block bots as long as they, they fall for its trap.
No, Antibot hides the form. So the bots scour the internet for forms and they look at your contact page, but they don't find it because they're just reading the form.
I see.
Go to that page and do some human interaction.
Okay.
They would know that's a bot. Once they get on their list, they hammer away at it. Okay?
Okay, I see what you're saying. That hadn't occurred to me in that form. Okay, go ahead.
And so thank you. That's one heckler down. All right.
Yeah, I thought you were saying until they find the page. But what you're saying is they find the page, but they don't recognize it as a form.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Okay.
And once it's on their list, then they'll come back, So, so the next one we're going to talk about is honeypot. So honeypot it's an old scheme about catching flies, that if you put out a pot of honey, flies will come by and then you can kill them, right? So what honeypot does is it adds a field to the form and we hide that field. Or sorry, the bot, honeypot hides that field. So when you and I, as humans, look at the form, we don't see that field and we don't fill it in. But when the bots see that field, they're just reading the HTML and they say, this is a field to fill in and it has a title and I just put in a value into that field. When we get the results, we look at it and say, hey, the honeypot field is filled in. That's a problem. So sorry, let me turn this down. Everybody's on me today. When that honeypot field gets filled in, we say, hey, you're a bot. We're going to throw out this submission. We know that that's not right. So again, this is a process that works, but I've had a number of sites that I've been dealing with that have Antibot and honeypot installed, and once the bots know where it is and they know not to fill in that field, they go at it, and you'll get submissions and they'll just skip that field. This module is, I think, effective, but like I say, the bots don't always fill it in. And so that field is not marked as required. So like I say, it's worth putting on your website, but the bots will get around it if they find your form. Next module I'll talk about is SpamBot. And this module is using a different strategy. What it's doing is taking this protects the registration form. It takes that registration information and it sends it to a website called Stop Forum Spam. This is an old website and it's a different approach to spam prevention. And what it's doing is, instead of just me on my website trying to stop the bots, we're collectively working together through the Stop Forum Spam service. They get the submissions there, they analyze them, and they identify IP addresses, user IDs, emails, information that the bot is providing as part of the registration, that they can identify it and say, ah, yeah, this looks like one that's a spam submission. We're going to throw that out. We're going to say reject that one. So your form will capture the information, send it to the spam service. They'll evaluate it and send you a message back. This works on the registration form, but it's not going to work on your web forms. It's not going to work on your contact form. So this is effective in stopping if you have an open site that's accepting registrations and you want to check those against places that are making bad registrations. So this is a good module, but it has a limited impact. So just on that registration form. Next one we'll go at is CAPTCHA. This is another form of spam prevention. And so it uses CAPTCHA techniques. Anybody know what CAPTCHA means?
Yeah, I think I've seen one or two before.
You know what the abbreviation CAPTCHA is a abbreviation for words?
Oh, I don't. I remember, yeah. No, I don't.
Completely automated. Oh,
You
shoot.
forgot. E, what's P, protection?
Pattern testing to catch, oh boy, now I don't remember it either. It uses, it's Turing test. It's a test that's administered to the user to see if they are a human or a robot. So it gives them a challenge to tell if they're a human or not. So you've seen these before. Google reCAPTCHA service flashes up. Sometimes it's just a checkbox if you're not really that dangerous. Sometimes there's a Turing test, and by a Turing test, it's a quiz, and you have to do some sort of logic to pick the right images. Let's say if it's an image CAPTCHA, and say, oh yeah, here are the pictures of the motorcycles, here are the pictures of the buses, right? And when you pass that test, you're allowed to do the form. The problem with this process is that it's hard on our users, right? Why are our visitors to our website, people we want to be most friendly with, have to do the most work to make this work? The other problem is that it can be ADA non-compliant. So people with low or no vision might have really a hard time dealing with a CAPTCHA form. So the CAPTCHA module, I'm familiar with the Drupal version. I think that this, the CAPTCHA in Backdrop is the same. There's a math CAPTCHA option and there's an image CAPTCHA option. The image CAPTCHA has two variations that you can set the intensity of. It's distortion and noise. So noise is going to be background information that you can't see it. Ergo, people with low or no vision are going to have an impossible time with that. The other one is a math CAPTCHA, where it'll ask in common words, what is 2 plus 2? And then that's equals 4. So, and then you put 4 in as your answer, the number 4. So, CAPTCHA challenges are usually effective. The other thing about this module is that it's extendable, so that you can use the CAPTCHA module and incorporate it with Google's reCAPTCHA service, which is when we're allowing Google to administer the test to that user instead of something that's running on our program. So we say, hey, there's somebody here that wants to get checked, and then Google injects their form and shows you their pictures and gives you some sort of a test. There's another one that's Turnstile we're going to talk about just in a second. So that's CAPTCHA, and CAPTCHA is the module, and then frequently there's an extension module that goes on with that. Any questions so far? Okay, let's keep going. Next one is the turnstile module. This is provided by Cloudflare, and it's an extension of the CAPTCHA module. So the same process is that you have a form, you turn on turnstile as the CAPTCHA challenge. When people come to the form, that information that you put into the form, rather than giving you some sort of a Turing test that shows you on the screen, hey, are you okay? Turnstile takes your information and sends it over to Cloudflare. Cloudflare is collecting information about what the spammers are doing because they're administering all that for many, many sites. It'll take in the time, the IP address that they're using, again, the fields that they're putting in. If they're finding emails and other kind of information, they can decide this person gets directly rejected, or this person might have to complete a challenge, like a image challenge, or I don't know what other challenges that they use. But we give our decision information over to Turnstile, and they take care of that process and then tell us, yes, it's accepted, or no, it's rejected. For the user, they might have some interaction with Turnstile, but it might be enough that just the information they provide gives Turnstile the answer to accept or reject our submission. I haven't used this module, but I've seen the comments that this is pretty effective and that it's not intrusive on our users. Has anybody used this before? Tim, have you installed this on any sites?
No, I've never used it.
I've never used it either.
Yeah. I don't know how long this service has been out. Let's take a look
I
here.
think it's relatively new, at least the new, this version of it.
Yeah. September 22, Turnstile, our smart CAPTCHA alternate. So
Apparently it's not.
yeah. So good news for us. There's a Drupal. There's a backdrop. There's a backdrop module for installing this on your website, and here's the project page, and it looks like this works pretty well. So that would be a good one for us to use.
Who is the maintainer of that?
Does it say here? Oh yeah.
They're Herb Duo. Thanks,
Yeah.
Herb. Thanks, Herb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Created for Drupal 9 and then backported to Drupal 7. And the Cloudflare team helped him out with that. So
Yeah, that's really important to notice, right? Because people keep asking, what's Backdrop? Does it have the latest stuff? Do I have to wait for the good stuff later? And you see right there, stuff that's in Drupal 9 is being brought into Backdrop because it's useful.
yeah.
Mhm.
It happens all the time.
Yep. All right. Next one I'm going to talk about is protected forms. I was kind of doing a deep dive to see what was out there. I don't have any experience with this either. It says lightweight, non-intrusive spam protection module. Enables rejection of non-admin form submissions which triggered honeypot trap, failed a minimum threshold, or contained undesired language scripts or preset patterns. That looks really interesting to me because there's a couple things mentioned there. Honeypot trap, you can reject because of that. Failed minimum threshold, so if somebody submits the form in too short a time. And then contained undesirable language scripts or preset patterns. So if you could, I was just looking at some modules, some alternatives for us to stop some spam preventions where bots had gotten a hold of a form and they were hammering us. One of the things I found was in the name field, the bots never put a space between a first and last name. So with this kind of a module, you could put in a flag that said the name field has to contain a space. If you could put in that pattern and reject because it doesn't do that, I had 4,000 submissions on a form, and our client was pretty upset about that. And when I looked through results, every name field it was a text field, and they just put in a solid word without any spaces. So if you could put in the help text on that field and say, put a space between your first and last name or this form will be rejected, that would be an automatic trap for this. So this hasn't been updated since November 15th of 2022. It does have 291 downloads. Anybody use this module?
No.
Okay.
While we're there, if anyone is new to Backdrop, they might like to know that you can go from here to the GitHub project page. And if you go to the GitHub project page, you can also see the issues that might be open or not.
Sure.
If there are ones, then it might be a reason that it needed updating. If not, maybe it still works.
Yeah, right.
And if you find a problem, you can post your own issue. So if you go here, there's no issues that are open. So it's easy to go from the Backdrop project page information to just check if anybody's been doing some stuff on it.
Yep. This looks like this is Ellen Mel's module with his company Altigrade. I would guess that they're using this, and this looks pretty well set up. So there are no open issues on this. So even though it hasn't been updated since 22, that's a good thing to point out, Izzy, that you can find out a couple things to look for, how many downloads there are, and then also on the issue queue if there's issues with these modules.
You have to remember that the active installs is really an optional telemetry thing. So it doesn't really give you much of an idea of how useful these modules are.
Well, it can, because Antibot has 4,856 downloads, right? 553 installs, compared to Protective Forms, which has 25, right? Honeypot 461, right? 3,000 downloads. So it can give you a scale. That doesn't mean it's not a useful module or that it's well featured. It might be just obscure, right? So, but it can tell you, hey, there you go. This is a good module, right?
Well, I don't know if you have other modules, but I mean, you've given us a nice set of modules and explained how they're complementary and how they work. So that's fantastic. I don't know if this is the time.
Let me go. I got one more. Let me go.
Okay.
Then we'll open this up. The last one is a Kismet. So a Kismet is let me get this right. It's an external source. Is that right? Who knows about a Kismet?
Yes.
And it's run by, is it started by Dries?
I don't remember.
You're thinking of Malum, I think, which might have been the same principle. But Malum was a spam prevention that used kind of a database.
This is a WordPress thing.
Okay. This is the WordPress site. Oh yeah, look at this. 549 million, is that million? Billion. 549 billion pieces of spam, 100 million websites protected, 99% accuracy. So I would guess that they have a free, personal website protection pro. So this is a subscription service with a freemium offering. And by freemium, that means that you can get the service with limited offerings for no cost and potentially just for your small site that doesn't have so much traffic. So, that's our sphere in Backdrop, right? We're not running the giant corporate websites, we're running small websites. So this is where the sweet spot is for us, these freemiums. And this would be the same sort of process that you would install a Kismet module, and what it would do is take the submission from the form, send that up to the mastermind, look at that, run it through the algorithm and say, this looks like a spammer and this doesn't, and push it back. So, so that would be another viable service. And again, it's instead of us as a little person trying to fight spam, and like if there's a new scheme, if there's a new bully on the block throwing out spam submissions, that would get caught by a Kismet, and then instantly we're learning and stopping spam in the real time. So with that, I'll send things back to Izzy. Go ahead, Izzy. You were talking about how there's a lot of offerings here, right?
Yeah, and like that last one, am I not too loud? But a Kismet is very much like Turnstile, and maybe even a bit like reCAPTCHA. These are software as a service with different providers. So you've either got Google, or maybe even Microsoft has their Bing service, and you've got Cloudflare, which offers their service, and you've got a Kismet that offers their service for free or not so good, and for premium more. And then you've got what you were mentioning, the protected forms module, which is actually applying these kind of techniques to the forms within Backdrop, and it's a Backdrop, so active form. Now, I didn't fully understand the point you were making about the name field space being something humans would have to do to compete with machines.
Oh, yeah. So my specific use case, I was working with web form submissions, and we have a name field. And that name field is just one field. And we could, when people fill out the form, they put in their name. I usually put in my first and last name rather than just my first name. And so when I looked at the submissions, this was on a professional services website for people asking for help. They would put their name, right? John Doe, right? Wilbur Ince. And there's a space in between there. And every one of the spam submissions that I was looking at, I was analyzing the spam submissions to try and find patterns about how we could throw out spam. And that space in the name field, it's like the spam machines were just putting in characters, and they weren't necessarily even names, but there were no spaces. So,
oh, well, I guess AI will tell them to look and see if there's what the field name and description is. Maybe that'll help them. But that's an interesting observation.
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed in my spam submissions that these guys are probably using is that almost all of them had links. Many of them had HTML markup for a link. So bracket a href equals, and then a URL. And so that's another place we could have hooked in. But I'll talk about this in that I'm going to try and contact this company. It's called Spam Master. this is a new service. So they don't have that many threats mitigated, but they have a WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, and Universal API links or modules or scheme available to use their service. They also have a freemium offer, and we installed this on our Drupal site, and that has been working very well because the projects that I was working on they're commercial projects, they're not personal user website. These guys will protect it up to 5,000 submissions per day. Whereas a Kismet, if it's a business website, you have to get a freemium, a paid account. So this might be another place, and this is where the CMSs are working together, right? Things that are happening in WordPress can benefit our project. Things that happen in our project can benefit WordPress, right? So we can latch on to these software as a service and freemium offerings for WordPress if we have a backdrop or even a Drupal plugin that we can switch over. So that might be one to look forward. I'll let you guys know if anything happens with that, but that's Spam Master. So
well, you've definitely given us good reason to pause and realize it's not just turn on one anti-spam module and you're done.
No.
And it's not, is one better than the other? It's like, how do they each work, and how do you want to fit them together to give your user the experience you want?
yeah,
Very nice. Thank you very much.
yeah.
So, right, the conversation I usually have with clients, which I think reflects what you were just saying, Izzy. And first of all, this doesn't have to be an issue unless you have a contact form. The most common places you get spammed are contact forms, comments, or the registration form spam also, right? And if you don't have those things, you probably don't have to worry about this. If you do have those things, you're going to get hit eventually. It's just a question of when. And there is no foolproof solution, is what I tell clients, right? It's a matter of, I usually some people want to go right to the CAPTCHA because they feel like that's the most effective. And I'm like, well, CAPTCHAs can be very effective, but they're also a nuisance, right? So let's start with honeypot, right? And see how long that lasts.
Exactly.
And at some point, honeypot might stop working, and then we can maybe try Ambibot or something and gradually ramp it up. Or sometimes I just do honeypot and antibot rate to start. But I like to tell people, like, if you might not need CAPTCHA, but maybe, eventually maybe you will. And just, it's more of an evolving strategy than like one solution.
Yeah, so my advice to clients is we always start with Antibot and Honeypot.
Mm-hmm.
Just put it on, turn it on, don't worry about it. And then if they find your form, then we have to go to the next level of defense, right? So, but I think it's really important to get those first two on there so that they don't find your forms, right?
I
don't like this. Don't find your forms. I mean, Honeypot, they're finding your form and they're filling out a field, so they know where your form is.
Correct.
They just haven't figured out the trick around it, right? Which they eventually will, or some of them do.
So I'll just say this, Tim. You've probably looked in your 404 error log and found /WP-login,
Yeah.
right? Bang, 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 bang. They're looking for that all the time.
Right.
Lucky for us that we're a small that we're not WordPress, that they're not looking at on every site /user login, because then we would, or /user register. What is it? User login register?
Yeah, well, just /user will get you there to the.
So Drupal, like WordPress, has a convention, and if the spammers would just pay attention to that convention, they would be banging on our doors trying to open up that form, and luckily they're not, right? So, but once they get that, the reason I say to put those two modules in and stop them is that once they find that URL, that is a form that they can fill in and put in their dirty links, they will do it, you know?
Well,
And
I agree.
Wilbur,
I agree,
Wilbur,
but go ahead. Go ahead. Izzy.
Wilbur, you missed the most important backdrop anti-spam module. It's called anti-scan. That one, you didn't mention anti-scan. That one is like phenomenal. Like you got to have that on your site.
I've never used it.
Yeah, well, 177 active installs, which is like more than 50% of the download.
Except, Izzy, doesn't anti-scan rely on you? Isn't that you blocking? So I added, it's on slide number 12. I added that during the presentation.
Okay.
But I think it's not specifically a spam prevention. It's an IP blocking. Oh, maybe
Right,
it does.
But
Does it use the
it
database?
deals with the bad crawlers and vulnerability scanners. Isn't that a good thing?
Well, sure. Does it use a database of bad scanners, or do you
Yes,
have
it
to-
does use it. It does have that in it. It
Okay.
uses the abuse IPDB report.
So does it log into IP that database and then pull down suspected IPs and then kick them out?
I believe so, but I can't vouch for that. You have the option of contributing back, or I think it might be like the Stripe service. It does it on a request. I don't know.
Yeah,
yeah.
it looks.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's another module you have to install.
Yep. Yep. So just to update everyone, that the process here is that you install this module. It goes to the mothership. It's not mothership, but to the other database, to the web crawling service. It pulls down known IP address villains. And when people visit your site from those IP addresses, it stops them from visiting your site.
Well, I think it's getting like a list of paths, like WP admin
Oh, I see.
is the example it gives there. And if they try to hit the WP admin, then it blocks them.
Ah, okay. So here's the scheme then. As somebody is crawling bad IP addresses or bad URLs on your website, it will trigger their IP address of being a known villain, and then it'll stop them from doing it again.
You don't have to use it that way though. Like you can set everyone that hits WP admin,
Yep.
you can set a threshold like 3. If they hit it 3 times in a row, then they're blocked.
Great. So it can block automatically on its own.
Yes.
You're getting attacked, or it can also look up. Oh, great. Cool.
Justin, are you using this module?
Yes.
Okay, and you like it?
Except when I accidentally block myself.
Gotcha.
Hey, Justin, let me ask you
I
this.
like it. I like it.
With anti-scan, does that still count as let's say you had a hosting service that counted the number of visits, that people had? Would this still count as a visit even though they got blocked? I think it would, because it would have to, bootstrap Drupal or Backdrop to be
Yeah,
able
this is running in the application layer, so it would be a visit.
Yeah. I'll just say one more geeky thing then. And another option for people to get rid of malicious actors and spam is to use a service like Cloudflare. What Cloudflare does is that it takes over the DNS of your website and it provides you with a CDN. And so when people are visiting your URL, here, I'll turn off my screen sharing so you can see my weird hand gestures. When people are visiting your website, they're going through the DNS service through Cloudflare. Cloudflare looks at their IP address and their request and says, hey, is this a good actor or a bad actor? If I know this is, Osama bin Laden trying to visit your site, I'm just going to block them automatically. They're never even going to spin your website. Then it looks and sees, and if it has a a cached version of that page. If it has a cached version and it can just, and it's within the time frame of their cache expiration, it'll just say, I'll just give them that page. And they're already done. They don't even have to spin your server. And so what that does is it reduces the amount of traffic going to your actual web server, so that if you're paying by or if you have a tiered service, it'll take out a whole bunch of your traffic that'll get served by Cloudflare, but doesn't spin your server. It'll also keep those really malicious actors out, and so you won't get spam from them.
Does it hurt your analytics?
It shouldn't hurt your analytics, because when they give them the cache page, it has the jQuery that should trigger in their browser to tell Google that you've visited that page, or Malum, whoever you're using. The only thing is that if you're a good citizen of the world, of the internet world, when you use Cloudflare, they're tracking all your traffic. They know exactly who is visiting your website, and don't think they're not paying attention to that, because that's why they're doing it. So yeah, Vicky.
I haven't heard you mention this, so I don't know how effective it is, but it's something I heard years ago. When you have a form, and about the only thing I have is a contact form, I don't have a forum, was to put one of your fields where they had to use a drop down. Like on my website, I have something called category, and it sits at basically select or please choose, and then they can choose from field trips, membership, programs, questions, webmaster, or other. But unless they click that button and choose something, it will not go through. So that requires somebody to click. They can put anything in their name or their message or whatever, but they must click that category.
So a bot would see that form and would see that field on there, and they know how to handle a field like that. They don't have to click it, but they would, when they'd submit that form, they would say, I picked one of those options.
Okay, so they can get around that without actually clicking.
Because frequently forms have checkboxes, and bots know how to deal with those.
Okay.
So Wilbur, I would argue that there are different quality spam bots out there. So some of them are less good than others. So some of them might get fooled by that, but some won't, right?
Yeah. Because I had one, well, we're at time, but I had one website where it was one IP address. I just blocked that IP address, and I stopped 25 spam submissions every day. No other threats. I was a hero that day. I had another project where there were every IP address, and even local IP addresses. It was like, oh, come on. I've also heard that even with spam prevention tools like reCAPTCHA, for a while, spammers could hire people in third world countries at pennies an hour and have them filling in forms on websites. So what that means is that no matter how good your CAPTCHA form is, there is a human solving that problem on the other end for 25 cents an hour. So usually that's pretty few and far between. And sometimes you can get those people on IP addresses, but it's a moving target. We will get better, and they will get better. So with that, any questions? Anybody else?
I think something to point out too is that things like a lot of these are assuming that there's not like a sophisticated AI behind the bot. They're like really simple, and things like reCAPTCHA, like especially reCAPTCHA, because it's dependent on bots not being able to see, but reCAPTCHA is also teaching the bots to see. So at some point, once they become reliable, once like AI becomes reliable enough, then they can just have AI solve these things.
Yeah.
The other thing CAPTCHA does that it funnels into your session securely and then present. So yeah, but you're right. You're right. It's
We need to wrap up. The next meeting needs to start, so.
great.
Thanks, everybody. Interesting discussion. This is recorded, so if anybody wants to go back and watch it later, they can. I'm going to end the recording now, and then we'll be having our developer meeting.